And because every country tries to, to regulate its relationship with Gazprom, with Russia, on their own basis, on a one-to-one basis. So I would say that Europe really needs a coordinated policy, one negotiator who can deal with Russia on behalf of the whole European Union, at least. And this might be quite a good communication position, because look, the Russians are more than twice more dependent from Europe as Europe is dependent of Russia. So therefore, I would say that Europe has a good negotiating position if it has one voice, but it's not the case.
Hello, you're listening and watching Rashkin Report. This is Yuri Rashkin, and I'm very excited to welcome to the program Vladislav Inozemtsev. I think one of the most respected and known Russian economists. It's an honor to have you back on the program. Welcome back.
Okay, it's my pleasure.
Well, this channel kind of does a pretty consistent job of pointing out things that are not going so well for the Putin regime, because it seems like it would be nicer for Russia if there were some different positive democratic perhaps directions for that country. But alas, it seems like it's important maybe to try to acknowledge that there's some good things that are happening for the other side. And that's where I was really curious about your opinion, because it's not so straightforward. Things are more complicated than we wished maybe they were. But prices on commodities are going up, and that should be benefiting the regimes that control those commodities, right? This means that Putin's locked in and everything's great for him. Am I seeing this wrong?
No, I think this is in general true. And people in the Kremlin, they are quite satisfied with the current trends on the energy markets. I doubt that these trends will be quite, they came quite for a long time, but definitely for 1 or 2 years, we can witness oil above $100 per barrel. We can see gas at maybe not current prices, but half of them, around $600-700 per 1,000 cubic meters. And this will definitely profit the Putin system, because just very rough calculation, they give estimates that in 2022, if oil prices is around $90 per barrel and gas prices around $600 per 1,000 cubic meters, in this case, Russian economy may get around $140 billion additional revenue from the exports compared to 2019. And this will be actually a huge input into the stability of the regime, because it is really obsessed with accumulating, amassing the reserves for which can be used in some critical or crisis situation to manage them. And definitely this might be this might provide a huge increase in these reserves, which Putin is caring for very much.
But isn't it Russia we're talking about? So they're gonna steal the money, and it's gonna go into to the oligarchs' pockets, and so $140 billion more. Okay, great, they'll take it. I mean, it doesn't improve the situation in the country. How much are they even willing to share with the people?
Look, I would say that they will share some part of this money with the people if it becomes inevitable for stabilizing the regime. If something happens, I'm not talking about popular revolt, it will not happen at all. But if some disagreement is on the rise, or would be in the rise, definitely the payments, different subsidies, retirement increases, some increases for wages for state employees, they will actually go they will actually appear. So therefore, I would say that for making Russian economy going, huge amount of money is needed, because in early 2000s, it was around 20% of annual growth in real disposable income, which pushed the economy forward by 6 to 8% per annum. GDP growth 8% per annum. So now it needs at least 5, 7, 8% of disposable income growth for starting this economic engine and pushing it forward for 3-4%. But for this, you should spend around 4 trillion of rubles, so 4% of GDP annually, and this can produce this growth in 2 to 3 years. And I would doubt that the government is ready to allocate such a big money to this purpose. So therefore, my forecast is that they will share some money with the population. They will try, and they will actually succeed in keeping the living standards at least on the current levels. But I doubt that they can assure a real economic growth, self-sufficient and sustainable economic growth in coming years.
And in fact, isn't it true that even if they put the money, like the current state of the retirement fund of Russia is that every Russian is entitled to about $1,000 as compared to Norway, which is like 200,000. So there is a retirement fund, there is a pension fund that money should be going into, but they'll put in there what they have to.
Now look, it's what we are talking about. It is a fund which is called the National Wellbeing Fund, and it's by far not the retirement fund, because the pension fund of the Russian Federation actually administers around 8 trillion rubles per year. It's twice bigger. The expenses are twice bigger every year than the volume of National Wellbeing Fund. So this is a kind of reserves which actually should be invested in some liquid assets like international debt papers, or to be invested inside Russia for high yielding projects. But it's not something which is immediately distributed to the people. So it's, once again, it's just a reserve which can be used in some extraordinary circumstances.
All right. So well-being fund, retirement fund is a separate issue. All right. Well-being of whom? Okay.
Yeah, that's a good issue.
So let me ask you this then. There's a lot of conversation about aggressive behavior of Russia, Kremlin more precise, when it comes to providing gas to Europe for the winter. They seem to be kind of nervous. Putin says that he is actually going to start filling up their reserves. So don't worry so much. But how do you see the situation? Who is in control here? Do you feel that this is Kremlin in control because they're providing the energy, or is this Europe in control because they're paying for it?
It's a good question, actually, because I would say that, of course, the Kremlin now capitalizes on Europe's faults, because it was, 10 months. We are 10 months inside 2021. And during the summer season, the gas prices were relatively low. They even dipped below $200 per 1,000 square meters. So it was quite a good time for Europeans to buy more gas and to fill their, the reserves where the gas is kept for the summer. And this was not done. And actually, Europe switched to the spot prices during all this last 10 years. And the last, which is very funny in some case, not for them, but for us. The funny thing is, the last country which followed this switch to spot prices was Moldova, who did this on March 2021. And now, as the spot price increased for 5 times since then, now they are flying to Moscow every week, trying to set up another kind of contracts, long-term contracts with fixed price. So therefore, I would say that the Europeans, if they had this intention to change to the spot prices, they should care. It should be, obsessed and cared about the reserves and about the somehow unified or synchronized Europe-wide policy in buying gas because there
And
is
did you
no
say,
such thing.
I'm sorry, like sport prices? Is what prices?
Yeah, it's a spot prices because this was from for 10 years they switched entirely from fixed contracts into the spot prices. So Gazprom just even now it sells its gas to European consumers on annual contracts which are fixed. And so even now I would say that Gazprom sends gas to Europe till the end of the year, or maybe till the end of November, at around 225 to 260 dollars per 1,000 cubic meters, and spot prices are rising and rising. First of all, I would say because of the low volume of reserves, and because every country tries to to regulate its relationship with Gazprom, with Russia, on their own basis, on a one-to-one basis. So I would say that Europe really needs a coordinated policy, one negotiator who can deal with Russia on behalf of the whole European Union, at least. And this might be quite a good, communication position. Because look, Europe buys from Russia around 35 to 38% of its entire gas consumption. So 1/3 of it comes from Russian Federation. But there is another issue, vice versa, because Russian export of gas consists in export to the European Union of 78%. So the Russians are more than twice more dependent from Europe as Europe is dependent of Russia. So therefore, I would say that Europe has a good negotiating position if it has one voice, but it's not the case.
We have two sets of countries here. I would imagine that we have Western Europe and we have Eastern Europe, especially countries that used to be part of former USSR. And I think those states seem to experience the more punishing side of dealing with Russia in terms of providing energy or transferring energy through pay rent for the pipeline that goes through Ukraine. Moldova, they decided to move away from Russia in the latest election, and their prices, gas prices, as you mentioned, shot up. This seems like it should be a warning, but nonetheless, in Ukraine, what should be the economic direction? Where should the development of Ukraine be? Like the dollars and money should be spent, in your opinion?
Look, I think that Ukraine is essentially a European economy, which still is outside the pan-European division of labor. It supplies Europe with agricultural produce, it supplies Europe with steel, and a wide range of chemical products. But I would say that if Ukrainian leadership wants to catch up with Europe, it should implement much radical economic reforms than it is doing these days. Because first of all, it should reconsider its budget and tax policy, because Ukraine is a more social state, I would say, in italics, than Russia, with higher proportion of social spending. And actually, the country can't afford this with the economy like it has now. So therefore, I think that it should be the taxes should be lowered. The European production chains should be actively attracted into the country for producing more added value in the country by international consortiums, international companies, as it was done in Poland and Czech Republic and Slovakia. And so this is, I think, the only way forward. Ukraine should become a more effective industrial base for the European Union than than Poland or Czech Republic did in 10 or 15 years ago. I would even say that, look, for example, everybody is now talking about the China-US economic wars and trade wars, but nevertheless, if the current dynamics continue, in 2 years, in 2023, the biggest importer of industrial goods into the United States will be not China but Mexico. And I would say that Ukraine should become Mexico for the European Union if compared to the United States. And this is inevitable. There is no other way forward if you want to be a part of Europe, because Europe is not, a continent which is specialized on metal processing or coal extraction. It's industrial powerhouse of the world, and you should somehow integrate into it on their own conditions, definitely.
Do you see any signs that that is happening?
No, I wouldn't say so, because actually the problem with Ukraine is that there is a constant quarrels between the political leadership and the economic leadership, which is represented by the huge oligarchy groups. The current president is obsessed with fighting some of the oligarchs to who was personally tied or whom he personally hates, like Poroshenko or Kolomoisky. And actually, this is the main element of the Ukrainian political life, as I see it from abroad. So therefore, I would say that it should be some nationwide consensus about where the country is heading, what should be done, and actually what should be the attitude both to the oligarchic structures, to the social welfare state, and whatsoever. So Ukraine is actually going from one extreme to another without, setting any kind of centrist and productive position.
Well, that's kind of unfortunate, because it seems like Russia, with its annexation of Crimea and then invasion of eastern Ukraine, has really helped to solidify Ukrainians in one way. But now it's just a tension of possible war that is not likely to happen from, looking by the signs of it. But I think for people in Ukraine, it feels like the danger is very real, because Russia is still next door. And that's, I guess, going back to Russia for a last topic that I'd like to get your take on is global warming. It's a topic that is really important in the United States and relevant to political realm and beyond. It seems like we have this area where we can work together with Russia. We have, an environmental czar, John Kerry, who seems like he's got on good terms with Kremlin. So there you go. Let's talk about environment. But how interested is Russia in affecting global warming, considering that it's working well for some of their northern territories that now could be, the ice melts and then the sea paths are open more than they were before. Siberia can be more livable now. Is this great for Russia? Are they even interested and motivated in cooperating?
Look, I think they are, because what you mentioned now, it's a double-edged sword. I'm not sure that Russia can get a lot of good things from melting the permafrost or or global warming in general, because there are two major questions I would say here. First, if the climate changes, if the winters, for example, in Europe became milder, in this case, the European consumers will need less energy resources from Russia, and this will undermine the biggest Russian export market for oil and gas. The second point is that, look, Russia will not gain a lot from global warming for several reasons. Because if someone thinks that it might be a good chance to offshore oil and gas exploration in the far north, it's not, because actually in the Barents Sea, where Gazprom tried to elaborate a huge Stockman gas field around 10 years ago, the project crumbled because of high costs, and they were very high at the time, and because the oil and gas prices are very uncertain, the fluctuations are very huge, enormous, I would say. I doubt that someone will go on the offshore part of the Arctic to drill there. The second point is that the northern infrastructure is built on the permafrost, and it was built for decades there. So if permafrost melts, the oil pipelines and the oil reservoirs and a lot of infrastructure in the northern part of Russia can falter. And we saw, I doubt it was, I think maybe last year, then a huge middle-sized oil depository in Norilsk went bust because of, I don't know why exactly, but it was said that it was some construction faults, but nevertheless, the same can happen if the basements of all these industrial facilities in the north will be not so solid as they are during the permafrost period. So therefore, this can inflict a huge damage for the infrastructure, which is really which overweights any potential benefits. And the last point is that, look, we saw year after year that Russia and the Siberian regions are plagued with wild the wood forests, forest fires, and this became more and more dangerous every year. And actually, as a result of these fires, more carbon dioxide is put in the air, in the atmosphere, than from functioning of any country like the size of Belarus for a year. So my point is that Russians can cooperate with the West on the global warming issues, and this is a really good point to try to secure some trade-offs with Russia.
So not asking you to take a partisan position here, but President Biden's idea seems to be like vision for the future is to move away from gas and oil and move towards more renewable energy as a way for our national security, if nothing else, beyond, and other things. Do you see, as an economist, with your experience and expertise, is this the right direction, or would you reconsider?
I think it's impossible to consider because, actually, look, the problem is not with Biden or the Greens in Germany or some other European or American or Canadian politicians. It's with the business, and we saw around $3 trillion of real money invested during the last 10 years into green energy projects all over the world. Just in recent days, Tesla broke the $1 trillion mark of its market capitalization. This pays off. And actually, even someone proves the next day that the global warming simply doesn't exist. And the danger of it is extremely exaggerated. It will change nothing now. So now the project, the direction for decarbonization is set up by the business interests, and it will go. The agenda will develop, and the process will go on. So therefore, I would say that Biden administration, it just rides the wave, nothing else. It doesn't it doesn't set up the agenda. The agenda is already set, and it will develop by its own.
I see. So the question is, to what extent the government or governments are willing to participate in this agenda?
That's it. Yeah.
Well, on this note, Vladislav Inozemtsev, thank you so much for your expertise. Always educational, enlightening. It's great to have you on the program.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
You're listening and watching Rashkin Report. This is Yuri Rashkin. Take care.